All right, let's start with the stimulus today. I think there are three big hurdles to passing a stimulus package over the next few weeks. I know I wish I had better news, but in my opinion, the stimulus plan right now is totally up against a wall. And there are three key areas that I think are impeding its movement any further. Number one is the stock market. Yes, the stock market is telling us right now. Just look at where we are. The stock market is saying, hey, we don't think that we need more stimulus. We think that we are in a good position and that the recession is over. Yes, look at where we are. Take a look at this is the story of the day right now for me, because when you look at Wall Street, and they look like they're saying, hey, a recession is over right now. That if you read the front page of Axios this morning, look, we're doing really well. We're expecting higher GDP growth over the next few months. We're bouncing back. Unemployment is dropping, and businesses are doing fantastic. But this is part of that K-shaped recovery that I talk about, right? Where the haves and have-nots are totally separated. So what Wall Street is celebrating right now does not reflect what you are celebrating right now. What Wall Street is celebrating is that all of these companies are laying people off, and guess what? Those stocks end up doing pretty well. It's totally disjointed from reality, and yet this is what drives congressional leaders. This is what drives the White House towards more stimulus. They look at Wall Street and they say, hey, doing great. Wall Street's happy. GDP is going up in new Wall Street predictions over the next few months. GDP is going up. Highly skilled workers, we can't hire them quickly enough. Just look at the Seattle Times. Here's the front page of the Seattle Times this morning. Pandemic scrambles the local job market. Despite deep unemployment, some employers still can't hire fast enough. Once again, what does that mean? That means that for highly skilled workers, businesses are scrambling to try to hire as many of them as they can. That's great for those people making over $100,000 a year. But the people who've lost their jobs permanently, the 60% of unemployment right now are those jobs that are never coming back. And who does that affect once again? You know who it affects. The low-skilled worker, the low-wage worker. Those jobs are now permanently lost, gone in the service sector, hospitality industry, hotel industry, etc. But Wall Street doesn't care about those people. Of course not. It's happy that they've lost those jobs. It cuts the fat out of their overall bottom line, and those stocks look more favorable as they restructure and bounce back. So number one is Wall Street right now. And just look at the numbers on Wall Street as to why I don't believe we're going to see another stimulus before Election Day, or if we're even lucky after Election Day at this point. And if these numbers continue, these are the things I'm going to be watching for tomorrow as Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin and Jerome Powell testify before Congress. Will we hear from Treasury Secretary Mnuchin or Powell that, hey, Wall Street is happy, liquidity is there from the labor on Wall Street, and I think maybe we need to reconsider this stimulus because, look, Wall Street's happy. If any of them say that tomorrow, we are in for a world of hurt. Don't expect another stimulus. The second major hurdle right now to any additional stimulus is the death, unfortunately, of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, feminist icon, Supreme Court justice who passed away, of course, on Friday and sent the political world into a tailspin. I mean, within just a few minutes of her passing, there was already a message from the White House that they wanted to cram another judicial nominee through before Election Day, that they're going to put that up. Of course, Democrats cried foul, said we need to wait. That's hypocrisy. Remember, Republicans, what you did to Merrick Garland as President Obama was leaving office? His attempt, of course, to fill the vacant judgeship role of Justice Kennedy. Antonin Scalia, actually. As Antonin Scalia had passed away, let's going to wait on that. And Republicans wanted to wait. That should fall under the helm of the new administration. Whoever that is, would it be Hillary Clinton or would it be President Trump? Now Democrats are saying the same thing applies here. But you've had two now senators come forward, Senator Collins and Murkowski, Republicans, women, who've said, no, we should not vote on this. We should wait. They only need two more. If there are two more votes in opposition to this on the Republican side, this will be held up and Mitch McConnell will not be able to bring this to the fore. But Stimulus. I'm sorry, but the stimulus just went from a maybe page 2 story, maybe page 1, maybe page 2, to now page 10. Or if good luck even finding it, good luck finding a stimulus story in the Wall Street Journal this morning, or any other major publication. The only reason that there's any mention of it is because of the Treasury Secretary and Jerome Powell that are going to meet tomorrow. That's it. And they're about to be grilled on whether or not we're going to have additional stimulus. That's the only reason you're going to find this story. Here's a Bloomberg story this morning. Goldman Sachs right now, Wall Street, saying, we need to, if we don't pass an additional stimulus, we're likely to downgrade our growth estimates. And we perhaps need an additional stimulus. Great. So you hear some people in Wall Street saying that. Goldman Sachs, of course. Now, will Treasury Secretary Mnuchin listen to Goldman Sachs? Of course. He's a big fan of it. The third big reason that I believe right now is impeding any kind of future stimulus is the government shutdown. So think about this, folks. We've got stock market, which is doing well, jobs numbers, which came in okay, and everyone jumped and said that's great news. You have the death of a Supreme Court justice, which now takes center stage. It is going to be one of the primary drivers of these next few weeks. And third is the government shutdown. Now, the government shutdown, of course, unless we get some sort of a bipartisan continuing resolution pushed through over the next few weeks. I mean, look, it's the 21st of September. Government shutdown in 9 days, unless we get something through. That is priority number one. And then I should even add a fourth one into this, which is the legislative calendar and the election, and everyone going on vacation on October 9th. So all of this sits in our way right now. All of this. There's going to be enormous pressure on Republicans to try to defer these incoming winners right now, for trying to put somebody right now on a ballot, trying to get pushed through a Supreme Court justice. There's going to be enormous pressure there, but then there's going to be enormous pressure from conservatives to try to stack the Supreme Court with a conservative woman. There's 2 conservative women at the top of the list, according to sources this morning. One of them is Amy Coney Barrett of Chicago. She's the early favorite in this. And Barbara Lagoa, who was viewed as easier to confirm in all of this because Democrats have already confirmed her for her federal appeals court judgeship role, 80-15 last year. So Democrats have already voted for Lagoa. Lagoa is a Cuban American, and there's pressure on President Trump to try to push a Cuban American through that might help him in Florida, win Florida. He's never met her, but he would use her as a political football, of course. And perhaps we'll see. The vote could, though, wind up being held up until after the election if Mitch McConnell has 2 more opposing Republican voices at this hour. Again, Susan Collins of Maine, Lisa Murkowski of Alaska have said they want to delay this vote until after the election. But right now, folks, all of these things are running out. I mean, we're going to talk about unemployment in a moment, but unemployment remains at historically high numbers, even after the recovery in recent months. As the economy reopened, the jobless rate at 8.4% only reflects those people that have actively been looking for work and found employment. It does not account for all of those permanent job losses, which sit upwards of 30 million Americans now out of work. Unemployment benefits, which have run out at the end of July, and then the president's extended executive order also now running out. You have many states like Maryland and others that couldn't even get their, there's people in Maryland who are still waiting for their unemployment benefits because the system is crap. All of these outdated computer systems. So there are going to be 4 key things that I'm going to be looking for tomorrow during this meeting in front of Congress, this congressional hearing. So there on the left of your screen is Jerome Powell, head of the Federal Reserve. There on the right-hand side of your screen is Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin. And they are meeting in front of Congress tomorrow to debate future stimulus and fiscal policy. And I think that there are a couple of big things I'm going to be looking for. There's a couple of big things. There's 4 things that I'm going to be looking for tomorrow during this meeting, and I'll bring you the updates. Don't worry. I'll bring you the updates here on the show. Sip of coffee time. Sip of iced coffee time.
Come on, man.
Hey, Joe, just because I took a sip of coffee, shut your pie hole. So there's 4 things that I'm going to be looking for tomorrow in this congressional hearing. Number 1 is the unspent money question. Okay, you might have heard of this, you might not have heard of this. So I'm going to explain it for you. There's a lot of unspent money that's sitting there that hasn't been implemented either properly or businesses haven't taken advantage of it because they don't know about it, et cetera. There's a whole bunch of reasons. But there's billions of dollars, $300 billion just from the federal lending programs to make sure that banks are liquid. So a lot of these banks are fine now. In fact, they're even opening up again to home equity lines of credit. I've gotten a couple of questions on my real estate podcast about that. People wondering about where they can find home equity lines of credit. So banks are starting to go back into some of those quote unquote riskier second home loan programs again because they're fine. You know why? The Federal Reserve has been buying up all these mortgage-backed securities and corporate junk bonds. And so Wall Street's like, hey, who's what's your name, sweetheart? They're happy. But there's all of this money still sitting there, $300 billion. Then there's another $600 billion from the Main Street Lending Program. So 2 things I'm going to be watching. Do they ask about the federal money, the $300 billion, and do they ask about the Main Street Lending Program, which has $600 billion in there? Now, that $600 billion is interesting because only $1.5 billion has been used. So that was meant for you as a small business owner to get a loan with the help of the federal government and local banks in order to, take care of payroll, do further investing in your business, keep your lights on. But only $1.5 billion has been used. That means there's close to $600 billion left. One of the big issues with this is that the banks don't want to take advantage of it. They think it's too risky because it requires the bank to take on a portion of the loan. So, and I get that. Look, if I'm a banker, if I own a bank and there's a business that's verging on the edge of collapse, and they come in like, hey, Clay, can I borrow some money? Like, okay, I know I'm only going to put up about 25% of it, and federal government's going to pay 75%, but that 25% is still pretty risky, given the fact that all of these businesses are going under already, boarding up. You've been telling me in the chat. I read your comments every day. You say you drive down Main Street, you see boarded up businesses. You've had family and friends losing businesses left and right. So this is happening. And yet so many people have not taken advantage of this Main Street Lending Program at no fault of their own. It's really the banks that don't want to take on the risk. All right, so what about all that money? It's sitting there. Can we reallocate that into some sort of broader stimulus? Perhaps. We'll see. That question will hopefully come up tomorrow. The third thing I'll be looking for tomorrow during the stimulus talk is whether or not local governments will be included in this. So here is going to be the biggest issue, and I think this could blow the doors open, and I think this could lead us to getting somewhere on a stimulus if, and only if, Treasury Secretary Mnuchin answers that question when he's pressed tomorrow during this session by Congress. If he's pressed on that question, which is, Mr. Secretary, the Fed has said local governments are being hammered and we need stimulus for these local governments, state and local governments. Would the president, do you support stimulus for state and local governments, which are hemorrhaging money right now? All eyes on what the Treasury Secretary's response. I can't wait to see his response to that. And then finally, unemployment. 30 million Americans unemployed, and those unemployment benefits that have run out weeks ago. So these are all questions I'll be looking for tomorrow, and whether or not they'll be pressed to answer those, we'll see. Pal Mnuchin tomorrow. Keep it right here, and those are the updates on that. So again, those are my 3 big hurdles, really 4 big hurdles to a new stimulus package. Number 1 is the stock market, and forecasts from Wall Street, happy. They're happy, mostly. the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Supreme Court Justice, and now Washington is in a tailspin for this fight, which is going to be the biggest fight of the day. And the third biggest thing is the government shutdown, which, by the way, was the biggest thing about a week ago. So it was like first on the list was government shutdown, and now we have the death of a Supreme Court justice. And then fourth, if you want to add fourth to that list, is the congressional calendar. They all go on vacation, and they've got an election to go campaign for. All of that being said, I mean, I just would be stunned beyond stunned if they're able to put aside differences on Supreme Court, government shutdown, all of that, and come together and try to pass some sort of a stimulus plan in the next 9 days, 10 days, 12 days. I just don't see it. I just don't see it. That's the very latest on that. So go ahead and smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget, we're here every day, 9 a.m. Eastern Time, and you can also subscribe to our daily morning newsletter, which is right here at morninginvest.com.